Okay, the webinar is now broadcasting live. To the panelists, can you see the slides?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so to everyone online, thanks for joining. We're going to wait about 60 seconds to give everyone time to get into the room, and then we'll get started. Looks like we have 63 and growing. So looks like the technology is working for us today. Maybe just another 10 seconds. Okay, so we have about 67 people online. I think a few more will probably be joining. We've got 1 hour, so without further ado, I will pass it over to Lloyd Rankin to facilitate today's AWP webinar.
Well, thanks everybody for attending. We actually had about 100 people register, and between the people in the room and the people on the presentation panel, we're up around 80 right now. So people will continue to come in over the next few minutes. Basically, this webinar is to identify what's going to change in the community of practice through our reboot. And we're pretty excited about it. We're looking for your input on everything that we're going to present to you. So please feel free to send us comments as to your thoughts on each slide. And I'm going to give you a little bit of time when we get to certain slides to provide us with your thoughts. So Steve, could you go to slide 2, please? So here's the agenda for today. We're going to talk about who the community of practice is, the vision, the mission, the values, and the services provided. We're going to talk about how we're guided, and that's a very important body, our advisory board, and just or more important group, everybody on the line and everybody who belongs to the community of practice. The two groups that actually developed advanced work packaging are the Construction Industry Institute and the Construction Owners Association of Alberta. And we're fortunate to have representatives from both of those groups on the line, and they will be talking to you about who they are and what they do, and that'll be leading into our discussion. So next slide, Steve. So this group was actually started all the way back in 2011 as the Work Phase Planning Networking Group. And it ran for about 5 years and then converted to the AWP and Work Phase Planning Networking Group. And that followed the release of the AWP standard. About a year ago, we rebranded it as the AWP Community of Practice. And since our inception in 2017, we ran our first webinar, and we've done 18 of them since then. We've got some pretty aggressive plans to bump that up, and we'll talk to you about that in a minute. We also have on the Community of Practice the ability to start discussions, answer questions, and these are all members raising questions and members responding to those questions. We can have announcements and invitations and jobs and events listed. We have not heavily moderated the group in the past, but as the activity ramps up, we are going to need to monitor a little bit more than we have previously. So this is who we are. Next slide, Steve. What is our vision? Our vision is to create safer, more productive, value-creating construction projects. And This is a working vision, but we are looking for your feedback. So if anybody has any suggestions as to changes that they think would make it more relevant or powerful, we are very interested in hearing from you. Next slide, Steve. Our mission is to share knowledge, encourage discussion, and promote the adoption of work-phase packaging, advanced work packaging and related construction productivity initiatives. When you get to our values, which is the next slide, we're going to really stress the fact that it's very important we work together if we want to achieve the vision statement. And we think that restricting ourselves only to advanced work packaging would be limiting. Next slide, Steve. So when it comes to our values, we really do believe in inclusion. There's some great stuff being done by the lean people. There is some great work being done in Europe. There's new initiatives that are being developed by COA and by CII. And we want to make sure that we are open to these new ideas and that we make sure that they get a voice. We think integrity is very important. So if someone is posting something, we really want you to attribute what's being posted to the party, and we want to make sure that you have the right to post it. So putting information up that is someone's intellectual property without their permission, unless it's publicly available, is not the kind of behavior we want to see. When it comes to project execution, we believe that it's very important that there be consistent application. And that means that people need to understand what the approach is, and they need to apply it consistently. And so consistency is very important, we believe. When it comes to collaboration and networking, Group ASI, of which I'm the president, have put on conferences for work-phase planning and advanced work packaging all the way back to 2009. We have lots of information that came out of those conferences, and we want to freely share that information with the AWP community. Our feeling is that each of the organizations that we are strategically aligning with also have great information, and where they are willing to, we're going to make that information available to you, so that you'll see some links that we're going to be presenting you in a few minutes. That will give you access to information from Europe, from Canada, from the United States. And we are working hard to strategically align with these associations and organizations. So myself, my company is a member of COA, and we're also a member company with CII. We believe very strongly in these organizations. We work extremely closely with ECI and with Commit, and we feel that the more we can connect these organizations together, the greater value that that will provide to the AWP community. Next slide, Steve. So I told you that we have delivered 18 webinars from 2017 to today. Our plan is to deliver 40 webinars this year. And that means we're looking at one webinar a week. And those webinars will be delivered by world-class owner companies, world-class engineering companies, construction companies, by the associations themselves. Hopefully we'll have some member-generated ones as well. And so the intention is that once we understand what the community wants, we will try to provide you with that programming. I talked about the fact that we have some available resources We have over 175 presentations and supplementary documents that come out of work-based planning conferences, out of the Houston AWP conferences, out of the London AWP conference. And we want to make those resources available because we think they will really help with the knowledge level of the AWP community. But we're also reaching out to CII and COA and ECI and other organizations, and where they have resources they're willing to share, we will make those available to you as well through links. We've always had the ability to do job postings and talk about training opportunities for both live and virtual events. But given recent circumstances, travel bans, and other issues, we think this is even more important. And so we will be encouraging people to use those features on the LinkedIn site. Next slide, Steve. Now, I talked about available resources. Joining this LinkedIn group is at no cost. We have, as of the start of this webinar, 965 members in the group. We are actively trying to expand the group because the bigger it is and the more active the membership is, the greater knowledge sharing can go on. We've given you links to CII. We've given you links to the CII AWP research, links to COA, links to the European Construction Institute, also known as ECI, to all of those publications that I talked about earlier from the conferences and summits, and also a library of all of the webinars we've done to date. And as we do additional webinars, they will be added to this library. So there's quite a few resources there. Some of them are not free. The issuance of the RT-272 or the AWP documents is something that CII publishes at a price. And so I think it's important to be aware when you go to the various sites that there may be a cost for some of the resources, but you will always know what that cost is and have to pay it. Most of the resources that we're giving you are in fact free, but please check to make sure before purchasing. Next slide, please, Steve. Okay, so we told you that we were going to be putting on a number of webinars. These are the next 5. So the first one is the virtual workplace advice from global technology experts. And fortunately, O3, Autodesk, and iConstruct representatives will be presenting some tips and tricks about working virtually. I think most organizations have put in travel bans now. There's a lot of working from home. And so we've got some very good advice coming out in that session as to how to maximize the experience. AWP in action, what looks different? This is a session that I'm going to be presenting that'll show you what traditional construction looks like, show you how it changes with advanced work packaging. And the focus on this is to make it very visual for people so they understand what it looks like when we're using AWP and when we're not, what the difference is between work phase planning and advanced work packaging. All the questions that people new to the concept would ask, and in some cases, questions that people that are experienced still ask. The next session will be a presentation from COA on AWP, a global perspective. One of the co-chairs of COA will be talking about his recent experiences globally with advanced work packaging. And so I know that's going to include Korea and India and Europe. So again, getting that broader perspective. Suncor has volunteered to provide us with their project manager and their contractor's project manager to talk about a recently completed AWP project. So it's a very candid conversation, and you're going to have lots of opportunity to interact. And then the final one that we're announcing is O3 is going to be talking about what's new in work packaging and how technology is transforming the role of the work phase planner. Now, our advisory board is going to be reviewing all of the go forward webinars that we're planning on doing, and we'll be releasing them probably the list for 6 to 8 sessions will be coming out every couple of months. And so you'll always have a good understanding of what's coming, and through the questionnaire that we're asking you to participate in, you can tell us what topics you're interested in, and we'll work with the companies to make sure, and associations to make sure that we hit those topic areas. Next slide, Steve. So we're planning on using the following format. We'll have sessions by owners, implementers, technology experts, we'll have case studies, and we'll have presentations from associations. And COA, CII, ECI have all indicated that, and Commit, which is a British-based organization, have all indicated that they would like to put on some presentations. We have probably 30 companies that we believe will be doing presentations, owners, contractors, engineers, and not just North American companies, European ones as well. So we're really trying to encourage the global aspect of this. Next slide, Steve. So who's on our advisory board? We've got COA represented, Glen Warren, who's one of the AWP Committee co-chairs, Andrew Burrows, who is the Flick AWP chair. From CII, we have Mike Pappas, who's an associate director. And from the CII CBA, Community for Business Advancement, we have the 2 co-chairs, Jamie Gersbrecht and Eric Crivella. And I'm sorry, I mispronounced your name, Jamie. Jamie Gerbrecht, no S. Then from the European Construction Institute, we've got Colin Quinn. And from Commit, we have Stuart Young. We are going to be recruiting representatives from the owners, constructors, engineering, technology providers, and other associations. But we're actually getting the association representatives on the advisory board to kind of help us determine how large a board would make sense and which companies should be represented on it. So we're fortunate today in that we have a number of the advisory board members, and they will be available for questions and answers later on in the presentation. Steve, next slide. So we have over 960 members. The interesting thing is only 48% of them are from Canada. 27% are from the United States, and 25% are global from the rest of the world. We are interested in creating a virtual global community of practice. So we are very interested in serving North America and Europe, but Brazil, Europe, the rest of the world is expressing a lot of interest in advanced work packaging, and we want to give them access to that information. In order to better serve the community, we're going to be putting up survey on the community itself, and we'll be asking you about who you are, what your interests are, what type of services that you would like to see, and what topic areas you'd be interested in, so that it will help us with the programming. We believe that that member survey will be up in 1 to 2 weeks. Next slide, Steve. Just want to say to everybody that since we've announced the reboot, we've had a significant jump in new registrations, and we're strongly recommending that you reach out to your personal networks and invite them to join in the community, because the bigger the community is, the more we can all benefit from each other's knowledge. Now I'm going to introduce Mike Pappas, who's a director over at CII. Mike?
Thank you, Lloyd. Good morning, everybody. So I'm the Associate Director of Deployment at the Construction Industry Institute, and some of you may not know who CII is. We are a member-driven organization at the University of Texas at Austin. We do research and development for the construction industry, and as was mentioned earlier, we were at the forefront of AWP research along with COA beginning back around 2009, and we've been conducting AWP research ever since. We currently have about 140 member companies, and I put our homepage link on the page there for you to go check us out. As I said, I'm the Associate Director in charge of deployment, and so we have a deployment committee whose job is to take the research that we've done and implement that or deploy that into the industry. So our job is to make that research more useful and usable. It includes professional development, it includes benchmarking and data collection, data analysis as well. One of the things that we have under the deployment committee are these community for business advancement. We have 9 of them. They're all topically based. We have one on AWP, obviously, but we have others in modularization, project controls, safety, quality, supply chain, etc. So right now I'd like to introduce one of the co-chairs for our AWP Community for Business Advancement, which is really where the thought leadership comes from in CII around AWP, and they can tell you a little bit more about the CBA.
So I believe it's going to be Jamie, not Eric, speaking to this slide. So Jamie, would you mind joining in?
I'm in. Thanks, Lloyd. So as mentioned there by Mike, the AWP CBA, it has been in place for a number of years. I've been in a co-chair role since 2017. We have about in the range of 130 formal members, and we typically conduct a monthly webinar, and we have at least one face-to-face meeting of the CBA on an annual basis for the past few years. Sometimes we've managed to have additional face-to-face sessions with a portion of the CBA as well. And we have held our main face-to-face in the same week as the annual CII conference. You can see here some of the dot points that we wanted to show to just reflect overall what the CBA is about, focusing on deliverables to further the CII AWP through thought leadership. And that was mentioned a bit earlier. That's something that we look to drive through the diversity of the representation on the CBA, which includes owners, EPC companies, C companies, strategic partners, suppliers, and just kind of a reach across a broad spectrum of the community. The subcommittees that we have in place include education and outreach, and I'm a part of that committee. The performance and benchmarking subcommittee, knowledge management subcommittee, and each of these are active and work toward various deliverables that are being put in place. The last point is that we wanted to show that the desire and the intent is to stay aligned between the COP and the CBA, obviously. There's the need to have that alignment and to avoid any potential for any kind of dilution or splintering, let's say, around the overall topic of AWP. Lloyd mentioned earlier that one of the 6 values for the COP is consistency. And that certainly applies to consistency and fundamentals in applying and understanding AWP with the appropriate flexibilities. And so that's just kind of a quick run through of what the CBA is about. It's a strong group. It's one of the healthiest within the group of CBAs in CII. It's been a pleasure to be a part of it and be leading it, particularly with Eric and with his leadership across this, where he has been involved for a number of years on this topic. And it's again, a very enjoyable and healthy group to be a part of, and has the opportunity to align well with what is taking place with the COP. Thank you, Lloyd.
And we've got Eric actually with us as well today.
Hey, it's Eric, Eric Crivella, Digital Construction Works, Bentley spinoff, chair of the CII, AWP, CBA. I'm thrilled to, get involved and see if we can scale and promote AWP. Happy to do so. A little bit, would love to see things that are orchestrated via the CII and via the CBA, and I'm a little bit concerned that we don't want to splinter the community or dilute it, right? So at the CBA we have there's 3 subcommittees listed there. There's actually a 4th, AWP Business Accelerator, and we're really focused around deliverables for each one of those subcommittees. Education and outreach, coming up with a training and framework, performance and benchmarking on the ROI calculator, knowledge management in terms of coming up with a toolkit and a repository for the knowledge, and the AWP Business Accelerator, looking at it from a what do we need to do to ramp things up, and specifically taking on the deliverables related to the AWP data requirements and the AWP capabilities assessment, and the R&D program within CII for AWP. So we have a lot going on within the CBA, and we certainly are hopefully in August getting together for in-person meeting. Hopefully, if conferences are then an in-person thing again at the annual conference in Denver. And I'm hoping to align the efforts within the community of business advancement that used to be called the community of practice with the group ASI and Lloyd's initiatives here in terms of on the community of practice. So I hopefully we can find a way to orchestrate things and not duplicate efforts and not splinter the community, if you will, but find a way to scale this and to do it in a fashion that works for everybody.
Thanks for that, Eric. Now, can you move us to the next slide, and we'll hear from COA. Glenn?
As usual, I was not taking myself off mute, so I was talking to myself again. Okay, from COA, very happy to be here. Similar to CII, we are a member organization, but with COA, it's primarily owners and primarily focused in the Alberta area. That's our mandate. But back in the early 2000s, COA was quite concerned about the productivity of our mega projects, and there was a lot of them going on back then. And in 2003, we started our Work-Face Planning Committee, which resulted in our first deliverables, the model for work-face planning that came out in 2006. And we were concentrating on the packaging and execution of the installation work packages and training. Training was there was thousands of people that went through various training programs of all the stakeholders. That included contractors, engineers, owners, to get them to understand what work-face planning was all about. And once we started doing work-face planning, we realized that we weren't getting consistent results. And that was mainly because our front-end deliverables, engineering and procurement, weren't being addressed properly. So that's the time that we combined forces with CII, and I think most of you know that the result of that was IR 272, Advanced Work Packaging. However, since that time, the COAA committee has continued to build out the AWP model, and specifically in areas that weren't fully addressed in IR 272 around engineering and procurement. As an example, last year, 2 of our latest deliverables was the Engineering Work Package Readiness Assessment Playbook and Scalable AWP. So those are both quite, those were things that industry wanted to hear, wanted to know more about, and needed some guidelines. So one of the things also COA really highly supports are the AWP conferences. They provide excellent subject matter experts who provide timely presentations, workshops, case studies, and also many, if not all, of the vendors who have developed AWP software, hardware, tools, and solutions are available. So this provides perhaps the best venue for people to see what's available for third-party assistance in implementing AWP and see what people are actually doing. In my own opinion, I think because of these AWP conferences, they were one of the keys to the level and speed of adoption of advanced work packaging. Our committee is a bunch of volunteers. It's a volunteer organization as part of the best practices committees within COAA. And at present, all of our meetings are virtual. We have a steering committee that meets monthly, co-chaired by myself and Yogesh Srivastava. But where the work actually gets done is in our working subcommittees. And these subcommittees meet based on their own schedules, but usually it's bi-weekly to monthly. And their schedule usually is to work on a deliverable and present a draft of it at either the COA best practices or at the AWP conferences, get feedback from industry, update it, and eventually place it into the COAA library. Of note, you don't, for COAA members or committee members, you don't necessarily have to be a COA member. We have structured some of our committees across North America, and we expect that we can expand that to across global. Another interesting thing is everything that we develop with COA is on our library and available to anybody in the world for free for downloading. Our mandate is to share the knowledge, the presentations, and the documents we develop for everyone. And the actual website will be on the resource page that Group ASI will be sending out. One of our key guidelines is that when we develop a best practice within COA, all we do is provide guidelines. We don't have strict, you've got to do this, you got to do that. We just give guidelines of what we would expect to do. And as we develop our ones, we try to put it into a playbook format so that people can easily implement it or maybe not easily, but at least they have a guideline for how they can get it implemented. A couple of the things that we're working on right now are procurement work process. We don't believe as COA that as anymore there's a procurement work package. It is a procurement work process. And within that process, you come out with reports that provide the information you need. It's not actually a package that you have to develop separately. It's a report that comes out of the information to develop. So we expect that we're going to be presenting this playbook, which will include a material readiness tool, sample reports, and guidelines of the AWP data attributes that we recommend. And we are getting some supply chain management information finally into our process. Another subcommittee, we're working on upgrading the COA library of documents. Another interesting subcommittee we have is mindfulness. A lot of people are working on the hard facts of AWP, but there's a soft side of it is how do you get stakeholders to buy into the strategy? And part of that is mindfulness we see as one of the tools we can use. Another subcommittee we have is working on back to basics. There's a lot of stuff being done. It's new to AWP, but really when it comes right down to it, the real success is in where the rubber meets the road is the actual contractor construction people executing the IWPs efficiently and effectively. Our scalable AWP committee is sitting in the sidelines. We put out our guideline last year, but we don't know if we're going to have to expand it. We're looking for feedback from industry. We're really happy that COA has structured a new Future Leaders in Construction committee within the best practices. One of the things that Flick has decided they're going to do is AWP is just one of their focus areas. And as such, right now we have Flick members included on our steering committee, and we expect that we'll have some of our AWP committee members on Flick committees as they get set up. We expect that AWP committee members will be there to assist, mentor, give information and provide presentations to Flick if they require them. COA has a large library of documents and presentations that we expect can be customized for delivery, not only for Flick, but also for the community of practice. So we see the COP, the community of practice, being an excellent way to spread the word of AWP and other productivity resources and assist companies and projects by developing focus sessions on what they want to need or what they want and need to see and hear. And we see the community of practice also provides a very good access for people to network over and beyond just the AWP conferences. So the final one, anybody who might be interested in joining our COA subcommittees, more than happy to take any email messages. And again, I'll have my contact on the communications that come out from Group ASI. Thank you.
Good morning, all. Andrew Burrows here. Thanks, Glenn, for that. You touched on a couple of points there around Flick and what the Future Leaders in Construction subcommittee of COA is. So we're only about a year old, and it was an initiative from COA to pull together younger leaders in construction to try and connect more with the younger generation, and also, you know, leverage some of the knowledge that the younger folks have and pull it up into different initiatives. And we're working to try and figure out what all the initiatives mean. So right now we're working on 6, but so again, it's a volunteer-based organization with many of the people inside Flick are all from different walks of the industry, new energies or oil and gas or construction, civil jobs, that kind of stuff. So there's a good dynamic of people inside the Flick community. Like I said, right now Flick has key initiatives that we're working on, and a lot of them are based around. It was all done by a survey from folks at the COA Best Practice Forum last year, and is what people wanted to see or what people see as improvement areas that we can do as an industry or as industry leaders. So, participate and promote in the AWP community of practice and help drive further collaboration. So what, the initiative I'm working on and part of is how we funnel good ideas from future leaders up into, the big groups that are working on AWP and see it. So we're not duplicating work, but just to try and pull it up and see if there's other ways we can explore what it looks like, or the scalability piece. Not a lot of mega capital projects going on in the industries these days. It's a lot of small, repeatable projects. So how that looks and how that functions is something I'm working on inside the charter of the AWP initiative. The other ones are, being led by great folks. The health and wellness, so mental health and coping mechanisms. So how we deal with that inside of construction work, and in today's current situation with lots of us now working remotely, with all this COVID stuff going on, this really plays into it, right? And how you manage working from home and how you manage the social distancing and all these other things we've been faced with currently. Lessons learned from continuous improvement is another one which will help be shared here through the COP as well, but also collaborative lessons learned. A lot of times businesses start off with they have a project they need to do and they think it's first case use, but most likely it's not. So how do you leverage from different organizations or different energy organizations and pull that in to have, so you can kind of get away from the first case use dilemmas when you're going through a project. Passing of knowledge from previous generations. So obviously we have, there's a bit of a gap in the industry as far as age goes that everybody's aware of. So we have your baby boomers to millennials, and how we pass that industry knowledge. I think there's 5,000 people a day that retire from the industry in Canada. So that's quite a lot of knowledge leaving the industry with a big age gap. And so how do we work on passing that on? So there's a group of the Flick folks working on how we gather that information. As well as success stories and innovation practices, so technology and construction, that kind of stuff. That it sounds like the CBA and stuff is also working on some of those pieces. So it'll be good to share through this community of practice what we're working on or what we found or what seems to be working best, that kind of thing. And then trends amongst millennials, so how the new generation of people view the construction world and what that looks like and what does it transform into, and technology playing a piece into that, less paper, more electronic stuff, that kind of thing. So I'm happy to be on the advisory board for this community of practice. I think it's a great place to share and collaborate with everybody. And one of the pieces in this was about consistency. So having consistent messaging across all the groups that are doing fantastic work around AWP and that kind of stuff. The CII folks, ECI. This is a good place for us to share a collaborative class, or at least give you the access to look and see what's going on, so we're spreading the same message. And yeah, so the Flick group's going to be working on putting together webinars. We'll fit them into the schedule with Lloyd and Group ASI on COP around these 6 initiatives, most likely throughout the year. So if you want to join the Flick group, obviously it's all on the COA website there, as well as there's some good initiatives that people are tracking down. So if you're interested, please feel free to reach out, and I'm sure we'll be talking to most of you guys later on.
Well, thanks very much, Andrew. Next slide, Steve. So you heard from COA and CII and the Flick group. In order to do what we're doing, we will need some help, and we're looking for volunteers. We have connections globally with a number of companies, but the more people that engage from the community, the better we'll be able to support the community. Plus, as Flick said, one of the things is around mentoring people that are progressing in their careers. So whether you're an experienced person that can help the group, or you're someone who's newer to the industry and you want to better connect with other people in the industry, we would definitely like to talk to you. So when it comes to the community of practice, the two things we're asking is, if you've got the interest and the energy, we'd love to have you as volunteers. The second is, if you see this as being of value, we'd like you to recommend it to your colleagues, because just since we've announced the reboot, we've picked up probably 40 members, and that's in 2 days. So I firmly believe that you will start to see our membership grow significantly, not just locally, but globally as well. So we'd love to have you a part of that. Next slide, Steve. So we've left time for people to ask us questions. Fortunately, we have on the panel people from Europe as well, and people from other advisory boards. And so before we open it up to the wider group, I'm just going to see, is there anybody representing either ECI or Commit or the Houston Advisory Board that would like to comment before we go to the Q&A? Stuart?
Yeah, thanks, Lloyd. I'd just like to just introduce myself. Thank you very much for inviting me on today. Some of you on the call may know me from my time in FearTech. In FearTech, we ran AWP for a couple of years. I am also involved with Commit in the UK. Commit has a productivity initiative of which AWP is a part. We hope very soon to be sharing the great opportunity for which AWP is in the UK and beyond. Yeah, if there's any questions, I'd like to answer a few of those. Thank you.
And anyone else on the panel like to comment before I throw it open to the audience?
Yeah, Lloyd, hey, this is Jay Mosier with Shell. I'm a principal technical expert for construction and fabrication, and also chairing the AWP Houston conference this year, along with Tom Morse, ExxonMobil as well. But yeah, I just wanted to elaborate that, first of all, this is a good investment of time for anybody who has a bit of time to volunteer to support. Also, I wanted to make a note that the CII CBA, AWP CBA, and a subset of that, working on data, issued at the end of last year a common set of data standards, which are now being progressed with an implementation plan. So that is in work in progress, and will be coming out via CII here this year. I think the time has yet to be set formally, but that data team is working diligently to finish that, and that's a major step in integrating all of the tools and the AWP process with the digital and technical world.
Thanks so much for that, Jay. Is there anybody else on the panel that would like to comment, or can we throw open the discussion to the larger group? Okay, so Steve, can you start monitoring? Could you explain to them how to ask the questions, and then could you act as the facilitator for those questions?
For sure, yeah. So there are two options. You can submit a question via the Q&A feature in your attendee panel. That would be a text message effectively, or you can hit the raise hand button, and that would give you the option to speak directly with the panelists using your microphone. So feel free to send us your questions, comments. There is a question for Glenn from Shiv Sharma. Thanks for the presentation. I would like to be part of the COA PWP subcommittee. How do I proceed?
Okay, great. I'd love to, if you could send an email to me, or how are we going to get my email to the group there, Steve or Lloyd? Can we put it right on the slide deck that you're going to provide to everybody?
Sure.
Okay, Shiv, what I'll do is you contact me at my email, and I'll get in touch with you, and love to have you on board.
Great, excellent. So there's a question from Louis M. What about the use of templates and procedures available in COA website and CII? Can it be freely used to approach the CWP and FIWP planning? And then in brackets, without permission.
Okay, this is Glenn here again. Absolutely, that's one of the mandates of COA, is anything we have on our website is free and available to download, and we've seen lots of people from around the world take our documents, take our stuff, and modify it to their company's own unique requirements. What we have is just it's call it a straw dog or a draft. We would invite you to go ahead and download and use as you feel free.
Yeah, this is Mike Pappas for CII. We agree. I mean, if you have our document, or if you have the document from COA, that, you know, having the document gives you permission to use it.
Excellent. Question from Milford Posey. Are any of the organizations looking at defining robust AWP stewardship metrics? I have not seen literature available that gets detailed on what metrics we should be tracking. Did maybe CII want to tackle that one first?
Yeah, this is Mike Pappas. I know the AWP CBA has a benchmarking subcommittee that's working on tracking different types of metrics related to AWP. I don't know what the details are on what they're working on, or what their findings are, rather. Eric or Jamie, do you have any more information about that?
You know, there are the obvious metrics associated with work packages and the, you know, work pack tracking and these aspects. And then, and there are others as well. And I'll look to get back in touch with Milford directly and talk further, and look forward to sharing with the broader group further as we continue to address on more of a global sense for the community.
Just a suggestion, but Steve could post this, or Milford could post this on the community itself, and reach out to the membership to see if they can share with you some thoughts. So this is exactly the kind of thing that the discussion feature can help with. So Milford, would you prefer that we post it for you, or do you want to go on and make the post? I think it makes sense that you do it, but interested in your thoughts.
This is Glenn here again. I believe there was at least one presentation at the AWP conference on metrics. Perhaps that could be posted as just as one of the information that is available.
That's a great idea. With 175 presentations, I'm sure we have some on metrics. Milford, unless we hear from you, we're going to assume you want us to post your question on the website. Can you just send us a chat message as to how you'd like us to proceed?
Great. So while we're waiting for Milford's response, we have a question from Nayan Sarveya from CNRL. I am responsible for preparing field installation work packages for CNRL. Could you please suggest how can we make sure that we are preparing the best field installation packages? Do you have any suggestions on this matter?
This is Glenn here again. We do have templates, etc., for IWPs on the COA website, but I find one of the best ways of finding out if it's a good package are the foremen using them diligently, and are they using them to the best that they can. It just you don't want to have a package that's too big or too small, and sometimes that's based on the maturity of the actual crews at our install. I know it's sort of a long answer, but I don't think there's a one answer for everything. Each field or work-based planner has to almost customize the IWPs to the discipline that is being used and to the maturity of the crews that are going to be executing them.
One other thing I would mention, we were at the Houston conference. We're planning on having a best practice presentation on having standards for different disciplines when it comes to how you package, because there seems to have been some interpretations that because we showed one package that you should use one package for developing IWPs. And the reality is that within a discipline like electrical, a cable pull package will look different than a lockout tagout package. And so within your organization, you should really be developing templates for each type of work within the discipline. And that is something that you need to consider. The other thing you need to consider is in RT272, it talks about the optimal size of the package being 1,000 to 2,000 hours. But again, if you're using it on a small project, it's going to be much smaller than that. That's assuming you're talking about a very large capital project. So those kind of questions are perfect ones to post on the community of practice, and myself and others will get back to you with responses. So Nayan, if you want to make a post on the website, a number of us will respond to you. We're now sitting at 1:02. Annabella Martin has indicated that they're interested in being part of the COA PWP group. And again, when we send out the slide deck, if you could respond directly to Glenn, he would be happy to talk to you about joining the committee. I think we've run out of time, but I want to thank everybody for participating. Is there any closing comments or questions from the members of the advisory board or the panelists before we close down the presentation? Okay, hearing no additional comments, thanks all for being on the webinar. We will be posting this, so if you have colleagues you think would benefit from it, please send them. Thank you.